Hi, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives, our wonderful customer event. My name is Michael Watts, and I'm Vice President of Product Management for Cloud One Conformity. I'm lucky enough to be joined today by Alan Brown, Solution Architect in the AWS Well Architected team. Alan, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here and to chat a little bit about some of the things we're working on together.
Perfect. And I am curious, so you're a South African living in the US, I believe. Is the
Yeah.
cricket team going so poorly to leave the country?
Look, I mean, there were a few retirements, but um, when I left, I'd say the tables were a little bit turned the other way. Just after I arrived, at a colleague, an Australian colleague, and he had a cricket ball on his table. He loves his cricket, and when I brought in a piece of sandpaper to help him commemorate the sandball swing, he was a little less impressed by that particular line of reasoning. But yeah, it's just a famous rivalry. It's been we've had a lot of fun with it over the years.
Alrighty, well, thanks for being here, Alan. I know I'm excited for the discussion today, as it's a topic that's definitely going to resonate with our shared customer base, and that's how teams are leveraging the design principles of the AWS well-architected framework to not only avoid breaches, but also ensure teams are building successful cloud operations and governance practices for high-performing and efficient cloud infrastructure. So let's jump straight into it. I'd be curious to see, from your perspective and what you're seeing in the market with your customers, how adopting well-architected as a mechanism can change or improve a company's propensity to innovate, and what are some of the business outcomes that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I certainly recognize and we do as a team is that architecture is a very nuanced topic, and if you talk to any set of engineers, they'll tell you that nuance is always more difficult than just the right answer and the wrong answer. If you can't look up the answer on a table, it's nuanced. And when you think about that, one of the things, particularly as customers grow, as they do more and more in the cloud, as they scale what they're doing in the cloud, they have to grow that nuanced perspective across a much broader part of their business. Well architected comes out of AWS working with thousands and thousands of customers, migrating, modernizing, rebuilding their workloads, and even trying to make a lot of their older stuff work on the cloud. And we learned a lot in that from our customers. They taught us a lot. The things that we did together, the problems that we solved together taught us a lot. And we decided that we wanted to share that broadly. We wanted to make sure that customers were able to uh, conceptualize and build a mental model around identifying the requirements that we operate under. So, for example, one of the very first questions you'll answer when you do a well-architected review is you will try and identify what the requirements are for what you're doing. Um, and throughout that process, as you think through that, that leads to some design decisions that you're going to make. And well architected really comes out of helping customers through that mental model to a set of confirmed outputs that you're going to use to that you're going to use then to design your workloads that they operate well and operate at scale, and that ultimately you serve your customers at the end of the day as you build that out.
I definitely agree, and I think one thing that I see customers really benefiting from the well-architected framework is not only the guiding principles to give them sort of an understanding as to how to architect their infrastructure in line with what are now the five pillars, but the fact that it's always evolving. So it doesn't matter if they're in the early stages of migration and it's more of the lift and shift architecture, or they're using containers or serverless. The addition of the lenses and the constant evolution gives them the flexibility to constantly adopt new and evolving services and technology, while always having those overarching guiding principles to understand how to architect with security, obviously, which is super important, but also reliability, performance, efficiency, and things like operational excellence. And this is particularly, I think, evident with one of our case studies, which is Burns McDonald, a large engineering construction company, leveraging the well-architected framework now to not only get that visibility, but they've also reduced significantly their AWS bill. And also, I think they've reduced their mean time for remediation by 50% by conformities visualization of the well-architected framework, but also the step-by-step remediation guides. So anyone within their organization can not only understand what the misconfiguration is, but why it's important and how to take action. So I think we typically see it driving three major changes, and that's visibility, so that the visualization of what do we have, what are we using it for, and obviously is it in line with best practice? Repeatability, so building in automation into their practices, and then the optimization, so what do we need to do with the outputs against the well-architected findings?
It's an excellent way to frame the challenge that you have with architecture at scale for customers. It brings to mind two of our customers that we spend a lot of time with. Liberty Mutual is a customer who's taken well architected and codified the best practices, and many of the best practices that can be, into their CDK implementation that their developers use to build and roll out their workloads. Customers like Cox Automotive use it to drive repeatability as part of the way that they inspect the things that they're putting on the cloud and make sure that they've got it right. So, those are all very, very powerful ways of taking a set of best practices that they believe in, and it will ultimately get you the results you want on the cloud, and the way that you use it to get those workloads on the cloud. Ultimately, what you're aiming for is that high performance, secure, reliable, cost effective, well operated workload at the end of the day.
And I love seeing customers understanding and implementation of the well-architected evolve as their infrastructure matures. And I think a good example of that is building it into the CDK or shifting left into the infrastructure as code. But from your perspective, how are you seeing the practical implementation of the well-architected change as more critical workloads are migrated or being built in AWS?
I think that the area, and we're starting to, really get serious about addressing this, is repeatability and reliably finding problems and figuring out how to resolve them and identifying your opportunities in workloads requires a high level of automation. We launched our API at reInvent last year. And, for us, that was a big step forward. It opened doors for us for customers who have been saying to us, look, we want to bring well-architected into our incident management systems, into our development tracking systems, into the systems that we use to make, to track when we're ready to launch something, when we're comfortable to launch something, as well as, really start to tie it into the ISV ecosystem that we've built around our business. We've brought in a bunch of workload or partners software into our businesses, and they help us operate our cloud workloads. And we want to use well-architected as part of that. So, we've been hearing that from customers for a while, and our response has been, to start with our API, and there's a lot more to come there from our perspective. But our partner community that customers have built their ecosystem around.
Absolutely, and our customers, the shared customers, are definitely appreciating the heavy integration between the ISVs like Trend Micro and Cloud One Conformity into the native solutions. Not only things like the well-architected API, but Trusted Advisor, Guard Duty, AWS Inspector, to provide that holistic view. And what I really like to see, we have, and for those that aren't familiar with Cloud One Conformity, it's basically built around the well-architected framework, so automating the visualization and remediation components of the insights from the well-architected framework. And we have customers that obviously are starting their migration or just building their first app on the cloud, right through to all in on say, AWS. And typically, the evolution goes from understanding the risk tolerance. And I think that's where the more critical workloads become super important, because there are some misconfigurations, as an example, that can be tolerated for a few weeks, and it goes into a change management implementation where we have our workflows built into things like Jira or ServiceNow. And then there's others that the organization says, this cannot happen, it must not happen, and if it happens, it needs to be remediated in a matter of moments automatically, because ultimately it's a risk to the business. And that's where the things like auto remediation come into play. So yeah, I think a perfect example of where the more critical environments, you need the understanding of what the risk tolerance of the organization is, and obviously the workflow to accommodate that. But let's dive into the security pillar, which is obviously at the forefront of all of our customers' minds, and why that's so important. So how are you seeing customers manage security as part of the well-architected framework?
Sure. I mean, AWS has gotten really good at protecting customers. We protect millions of customers running on our cloud, and we conceptualize it as a shared responsibility model. Our customers, we own the security of the cloud, and our customers own security in the cloud. And the well-architected framework is intended to be the set of best practices that really help customers build a mental model of that security in the cloud posture. How do I make sure that as a customer, I'm doing the right things to take advantage of the features that AWS provides me, the things like guard duty and the capabilities that the platform allows you to really raise the bar on your security, but also to make sure that you don't miss things. Part of that is understanding your requirements. And again, I come back to this a lot, and I will, because it doesn't matter what pillar of the framework you come down to. Requirements drive what you end up building. They drive, design principles are great, the best practices are great, but the way that you implement those comes down to your requirements. You've got to really start start with understanding what your requirements are, and then from there, understanding, our best practices help you then take those requirements and convert them into real architectural decisions. And security is one of those ones where you've got to get it right. And we work a lot at this, and as I said, we provide a lot of functionality for our customers to help them get it right. And we hope that well architected is also that last puzzle piece to, okay, I've got the tools. How do I make sure that I'm reliably getting it right?
Absolutely, and I think this is where a lot of organizations are implementing things like the Cloud Center of Excellence, where there's the shared responsibility model, where obviously AWS is responsible for security of the cloud, and then the Cloud Center of Excellence is basically trying to define within the organization their own shared responsibility model of what do we need to do to build guardrails in place to ensure that our teams can move fast and get the full freedom and flexibility that the cloud enables, while also giving them enough guidance and limitations that they can't do something that they ultimately shouldn't, just through a lack of understanding. And things like the IAM policy and the principle of least privilege is one aspect. But then I think the automation and the understanding that tools like Cloud One Conformity can provide over and above the well-architected framework. So if an engineer is really focused on building their application, but they're also responsible in this day and age of building out some of their infrastructure as well, they can receive real-time alerts around the infrastructure they're building and get guidance on, is this secure? Is it in line with the organization's best practice? And if it's not, what can I do to go and fix it? So in real terms, some customers would be struggling to think, how do I actually get started with a well-architected framework and implement some of these guiding principles? Where would you be recommending is a good starting place to implement some of the foundations of well-architected?
And I can talk about the journey. I think a big part of this is talking about the journey that you take. Like anything, you've got to start and understand, and a lot of our customers start by reading the framework and understanding what the best practices are, what the design principles are, and how those might apply, and then applying them to workloads, seeing what you can learn from that. Ultimately, as customers scale, they generally go down a couple of different paths and a couple of different mechanisms. And we've worked very, very hard to make sure that is easy and simple for customers. In that journey, using your AWS team, using your TAM, using your solution architect, using your account team to help you conceptualize and understand how you use well architect in your business is important. Those folks we're proud of our framework. We're proud of the way that it helps customers be successful, and teams are all skilled on helping customers be successful at it. Over time, what you're going to find is that you're going to need to scale that, and that is where we have a very powerful relationship with our partner community. We have hundreds of consulting partners in every part of the world who are ready to really jump in with customers on specific workloads, whether they're in an MSP relationship, whether the partner is managing those workloads for them, or they bring them in our consulting engagement, or their partner's building a brand new workload from the ground up. We have hundreds of partners who use well architected as a tool to identify opportunities and work very closely with our customer to resolve them. We are We have a community of ISVs like Conformity One and others, and we will continue to grow both of those substantially, because we think that customers, when you talk about how do I make sure my workload is reliable, how to make sure it's secure, you can't. There's no delay. Time is disproportionately important. That the month it takes you, or the 3 months it takes you to become skilled at well architecting yourself, could be the 3 months it costs you a reliability event or a security event. Our partners, our professional AWS's professional service organization, our ISVs, those are how you really jump into it immediately. I think customers can take the route of really trying to understand and implement it themselves, and many of ours do. But for many of them, going down one of those channels, going down one of those places where they can just bring in the right skills immediately is really, really important, and a good scaling factor for our customers. And it's cost efficient. It helps them preserve their resources. One of the things that we hear from customers is that I identified a problem, but I don't be able to resolve it because my time is focused on getting to market. It's the features that my customers are talking to me about. The dogs not barking are the ones that they tend to fall down prioritization tiering, and that is where something like a partner or tooling or our professional service organization can really help customers augment their existing capacity and tackle those things head on and quickly. Time, speed matters disproportionately.
I couldn't agree more. And I think a big advantage of AWS customers is the ecosystem. So working closely with the AWS solution architects, the professional services team, and then the ISVs like Trend Micro and the value add tools like Cloud One Conformity. So you're getting obviously the native AWS services, the services that the well architected services on top of that, like Trusted Advisor or the well architected API, and then enabling the organization to move quickly through these partner solutions to get seamless visibility, actionability, and obviously aligning that to not only the well-architected framework, but also the industry compliance standards, and really tailoring it to meet their needs. But Alan, look, I've really appreciated this conversation. I know it's been interesting for our shared customer base. I appreciate your time. I know we could probably talk for a few hours on this topic and dive really deep. But, next up, we're going to go into the practical application of managing security in the cloud. So Alan, thanks again for your time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. And I hope this was useful.